got into the wrong crowds when I moved from Bend to the big city. That began my journey to the bottom for a teenager. Ran into lots of problems, lots of challenges. Eventually led to coming to Christ when I was 15 in high school.
So the coming to Christ is another one of those things that I always like to ask people when they tell their salvation story, how they came to faith and what took and what needed another decade or two to come to fruition, however you want to tell it.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple story. I mean, it's pretty typical, probably in some ways for some people. I had no relationship with God, had a fairly religious kind of understanding of some things. My family dabbled here and there. My parents were born again when they were young, but then kind of strayed and then found their way back into the Seventh-day Adventist church. So I had a little bit of private school upbringing, but no faith, no real understanding of Christ or relationship with him. When I got to Portland in my teens and got into drugs and problems and all the things that were part of kind of a broken home aftermath, mental health, just depression and trying to identify with, trying to discover who you are, all of that kind of stuff. Got to a really low place, really had no hope. And somehow, my dad recognized I was in trouble. He had enough faith background, even though he wasn't walking with Jesus faithfully at that time. He knew I had a spiritual problem, and he started seeding that, saying, "Hey, you've got a spiritual issue." I had a lot of demonic activity and things I'd brought to him I was dealing with, and he was kind of woke up a little bit to that, like, okay, my son's going through some tough stuff. He needs Jesus, but he didn't really know how to point me to him because he wasn't walking with him. He was out of relationship, was really backslidden. But he left a tract and some Bible material around. And one afternoon, really bad space in my life. I got this tract and I was in my room, which was, the center of my hedonism. It was, I had a cross on my wall made out of centerfolds. I mean, I worshiped everything that was the world, the flesh, and the devil. But I was in deep need. I read this tract. I got to the back and there's that prayer, it says stuff like, God wants to take control of your life if you'll surrender it to him. And I'm thinking to myself, my life is a mess. I don't know where I'm going. I don't have any sense of joy or anything in my life. I could pray this prayer, and if it's true, great. And if not, I'm still sitting here on my bed. So it was weird, kind of transactional, like, what do I have to lose?
Oh, this is so funny. Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yeah.
I used to do a bunch of street evangelism. Mm-hmm. Just recently was at the fair this summer.
Yeah.
And I used to do this all the time. And I did this at the fair where I talked to a guy who was unbelieving. He didn't believe, but he was willing to have the conversation, listen to the end. And I said, I double dog dare you to give Jesus a try.
Yeah.
Say this prayer, just say it. And then by the time I was done, I basically asked him to pray the prayer, Jesus, if you're real, show up in my life in a way that I will recognize. And he did. And I've been doing this for decades and with lots and lots of people. So I'm so excited to hear your story, which is basically the same.
Totally the same. And I always say that to people when, because sometimes tracts and those kind of things get knocked as old school or not, I mean, it doesn't always it doesn't get place in the way it used to maybe. And I'm always saying, listen, all I didn't need convinced. I needed the truth. I just needed someone to tell me what God said and what God wanted. I didn't have an argument with him. My life was clear. I knew evil. I knew where I brought myself. I knew sin. So the truth of the gospel was very simply just needed to be heard. I prayed that, and I had a significant born again experience with Jesus. He came into that room and conquered me. And I got on fire for Jesus, and it was a mess of glory and wildness after that. It exploded into just beautiful chapters of campus evangelism and fellowship with other friends in Christ and lots of gospel work. I broke my teeth on evangelism on Burnside and the homeless, and spending Fridays and nights street witnessing to gutter punks and skinheads and sitting with homeless people. And so from my initial conversion, I was drawn to the margins immediately because I was from the margins, and Jesus showed up in a way that just gave me a heart for everyone similar. And that eventually led to at 19, taking a position in a church as a youth pastor and off and running.
Nice.
Yeah.